So I'm kind of in armor heaven here. I came down to the Americans in, I guess it's Americans in Military History Museum. I'll post details. And they have an open house today with all sorts of World War II and more modern vehicles on display. It's a fundraiser. I think I'm going to become a member of this museum because they're trying to preserve and keep vintage vehicles from World War II and earlier and later, and keep them in a permanent location somewhere in Central Virginia. Anyway, it's a blast so far. I've seen tons of great tanks, not even hardly scratching the surface yet. Yes, right behind me you're seeing a Quad 50 half-track used for anti-air World War II. It's a very cool vehicle that puts out a lot of firepower. I hope I can capture the flamethrower demonstration at some point today, and we'll continue taking pictures.
And folks, please, no climbing on the vehicles if you would. Only the reenactors should be on the vehicles. No climbing on the vehicles. Only assigned reenactors should be on those vehicles. For one thing, they're slick as glass, and if you get into a fight with them, they're going to win. I have a man right over here right now who has a busted up knee because of his recent experience sliding down the front of a tank.
I keep seeing an M white, I guess it's an M3, sorry, wrong. It's a white scout car, I forget what its designation is, but with those cool pre-war Montana hat infantry in like the 30s and early 40s. Very cool.
At the time, it was in a kind of a blue-gray color. It eventually went back to the Israelis.
What we're seeing here.
And then it went to a man in England who ultimately sold it to Alan Kors here, and it became part of the Virginia Museum of Military Vehicles.
What we're seeing here is a Israeli Super Sherman.
Although this has the very early drivers and forward machine gunner hatches, and the small hatch covers of an early war style Sherman like the M4A4. It continued serving well into the 1970s. The Israelis took this a step further too. They also mounted a 105 on some of their Shermans. This is called an M50, the Super Sherman. The M51 I Sherman, literally I Sherman, had a 105 millimeter gun. It was so big that a lot of times they would just take the vehicle out of gear and let the vehicle just roll back and let it absorb the recoil. This particular Sherman has horizontal volute spring suspension, or HVSS. We started putting this on some of our tanks in 1944 and a lot of them in 1945. If you've seen the movie Fury, the tank that Brad Pitt is in, that tank has horizontal volute spring suspension. You can compare it to the other Shermans, like the one right over here that has vertical volute spring suspension. The treads are narrow. Those narrower treads give it less traction. These wider treads, more traction and more flotation, spreading the weight more evenly. Most of the tanks, most of the Shermans that we used in Korea had HVSS, the same kind of suspension.
Okay, this is something you don't see every day, a Ketten crab, which is the German half motorcycle, half tank. The infantry loved them. They could pull a trailer and carry a bunch of people on them, and they're good scout vehicles.
That's how she built my granddad. He was out there during the war in California.
I got a little torpedo from the lake.
There we go. I guess this is reenactors of a light German reconnaissance group or something. That's a half track German. I think it says CKFC 42, but I could be wrong.
Sold it to Alan Kors, and that's how we have it now. This is a significant piece of history. It also shows just the longevity of the Sherman tank. So we have the oldest Sherman running in any museum here, the M4A1, the cast hull. That tank was actually made in 1942 and served from that point on. This particular tank was probably built around 1944, maybe 1943. It was rebuilt after the war by the French and the Israelis, probably in the 50s, and continued serving into the 70s.
And the other one below it is a Chinese-style AK, the Type 56 with the folding spike bayonet. The Russians had regular knife blade bayonets attached to them. It's a Chinese thing to have folding spike bayonets on their weapons. Their SKSs have it as well, because Russian SKSs have blade bayonets. They're folding, but they're bladed. The Chinese like the spikes. Now, it's probably based on the original World War II Russian bayonet, which is much more of a spike design like that. Your machine gun up there is the RPK. The RPK machine gun up there, which is basically just an extended barreled AK-47. It replaced the RPD that you see here, which was a much more complicated weapon. Both fire the same cartridge round though. And then you have the DP-28. And that is left over from World War II. This is actually a post-World War II version with the pistol handle design to it. The early World War II ones were standard stock. And then, of course, the RPG-2s and the RPG-7. And they had access to all kinds of other weapons. They had access to K98s.
I was right. Looks like it's something they're running mostly for the Scouts, which is cool.
some of you may not realize it, but you've seen these on TV before. There is a company in England that is cutting these down and putting fiberglass and metal superstructures on them to make them look like German Sturmgeschütz assault guns. And you've seen those in Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers. If you want the cheap version, they'll put it right on this chassis. If you want the expensive, more realistic version, they'll cut the back end off, add an extra couple of feet, and put 6 wheels on it instead of 5 on the ground. And when they're done up like that, they really are a very good copy of a German Sturmgeschütz.
This is a Swedish S-tank. It's a Cold War era tank. But the Swedes put out no turret, big ass gun, very low silhouette.
Take a moment to thank everybody who became a member, and some of you lucky folks actually got to ride one of our vehicles. These are also vehicles that are fairly easy to drive, so if we give you a chance somehow or another to drive a vehicle, you're probably either going to be driving one of these or one of the Avid SP guns, which have basically the same controls and the same suspension system.
Okay, so I got here at a pretty good time. The tank you've seen behind me is the T-34-85, arguably one of the best tanks of World War II, and definitely a war winner for the Soviets. And it is about to crank up, like literally any minute, and go out and do a demonstration run for the people that are here today. So, it's not every day you get to see a T-34-85 drive somewhere, and we're standing by. Here we go. The good old days.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And here's the T-34 coming back from their short jaunt around the proving ground. I'm sure that backing up the T-34 is challenging. Nicely done, driver.